Guys, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's so lovely to see so many smiling, lovely faces around the room. We've got a really exciting afternoon planned for you. The man alongside me is a man that is the co-founder of Racing Pride. And of course, let's talk about inclusivity. We all know what it means here. We do, we've talked about it, but we want to create more conversations about inclusivity within the workplace and alongside Racing Pride and Aston Martin. That is why we're here. Are we excited? Yes, love that. That's some good. Look, Richard, you are the co-founder of Racing Pride. You are everything. The reason we are here is because of you, and so thank you so much. And I think a lot of us would like to say thank you for giving us a safe space for everyone to be able to talk. But could you just explain a little bit about Racing Pride for me, please?
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for that introduction, which is still quite moving. So I'm Richard. I'm co-founder of Racing Pride. We launched it in June 2019, so 4 years ago now. And we are, of course, partnered with both Aston Martin F1 Team and Aston Martin Lagonda. And you're going to hear from some representatives both of the F1 team and of the road car business, and some amazing partners who are here alongside us as well. Racing Pride is about, of course, championing LGBTQ plus inclusion through motorsport and its associated network of businesses that go alongside that. And it has several sort of key strands to it. One is visibility. It's really important to have visible role models for the LGBTQ plus community, people showing that you can be LGBTQ plus in this sport, whether that's as a driver or as a mechanic, an official, a volunteer, an engineer, whoever it is in the sport. You can be LGBTQ plus, you can be successful. That's an important part of what we're doing. But also visibility of allyship and giving people a way of showing their support for the LGBTQ plus community. I always felt growing up in this sport that one of the major issues wasn't that people were necessarily homophobic, biphobic, transphobic. It's that, they didn't have a way of showing that allyship that would make the conversations easier, make it clear to people that they had a safe space to be out and to be themselves. And that's something that we're really trying to promote through Racing Pride and the conversations that we're having, and indeed the very public activations that Aston Martin F1 and others are doing to help us spread that message and to give allies something to get on board with, to be part of this movement. On that, building on that platform, there's also that sense of community, both for LGBTQ plus people and, of course, of allies to be part of that. But also a really important part of Racing Pride is education and the work that we do with our partners away from the racetrack, beyond the racetrack, to make sure that those ideals of LGBTQ plus inclusion are reflected in people's actual experiences of being part of this sport and part of this industry. And to me, it's really meaningful that we're not just putting stickers on cars during Pride Month or just putting social media posts out or just putting flags up. We're also thinking about this all year and making this genuinely a sport and an industry for everyone. So I'm looking forward to hearing our panelists. I hope you all are too. And I'll hand back to Claire.
So let's meet our panelists, shall we? Because this is why we're here. We want to hear more about what's been going on within inclusion. Let me sit down. Mehmet, let's start with you.
Yes, my name is Mehmet Koçum. I'm head of leadership and culture at Aston Martin Lagonda. My role, actually, Aston Martin didn't have my role before, so it's a newly created role, head of leadership and culture. And actually, I started on the same day with Laura, our EDI lead, another newly created role. So both head of leadership and culture and EDI lead roles were created at Aston Martin. I think it's a great testament what Aston Martin wants to achieve from culture and inclusion perspective. What I do, it's very simple terms. I try to make the Aston Martin's brand promise matches with the employee experience. So that's what I do. And to achieve that, actually, we work with a great team, and I'm really proud to be part of that team.
Simon, do you want to go next? Just explain what your role is within Aston Martin F1 Team.
Yep. Hi, I'm Simon Foster. I'm the IT service delivery manager working for Aston Martin F1. I haven't been in this industry very long. I started here in the middle of January this year. So very much finding my way around what happens here, why things happen, how things happen, and more importantly, how we can change things. So lots of experience there. about how the IT systems can support our colleagues as well who are neurodiverse, dyslexic, whatever we need here. Look at things from an IT perspective as well.
Shelley.
Hi, my name is Shelley Tiltman. My pronouns are she, her. For the benefit of people who cannot see me, I'm wearing a bright green top with brown hair, which is slightly greying, unfortunately. So my job at Cognizant is Global Inclusion and Belonging Leader, and essentially that means trying to create environments where everyone can thrive, regardless of their background. And so there's a lot of work that we do on the ground. I lead all of Cognizant's affinity groups, employee resource groups, of which we have 8, and I'm sure I'll talk a little bit more about them in a little while.
Lovely. Let's say hi to Connor.
Hi everyone, so I'm the Citi representative on the panel. I am a finance guy. I've only ever worked in finance, so everything in this factory is ludicrously fascinating to me. I've been at Citi for 16 years. I run a group which is called Financial Institution Sales and Solutions. That's a bit of a mouthful. I can work for a bank. So I take the moral argument off the table and I turn it into a purely commercial argument. I've talked about this for a number of years. Paco mentioned it earlier. For me, it's about talent. It's about attracting, retaining, motivating talent. But not only that, the best talent don't want to come to somewhere that is just angled and full of a bunch of, like me, white middle-aged males. From my view, if you can get that right, everything else falls into place. So that's why I'm here.
And last but certainly not least, Karis.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm a wee pointer here. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm Karis. I work in the composites engineering department here at the Aston Martin F1 Team. I have been at, I'm going to say, Team Silverstone for nearly 14 years. Latest incarnation, of course, is Aston Martin F1 Team. I'm looking forward to our future.
Well, we've been looking around the factory today, haven't we? And you've been pointing out all the different things to do with what is so important about your job. And it's been fascinating today for all of us, I think, to see everything in this factory. And Simon, let's start with you. What do you think is lacking at the moment in terms of getting more visibility for inclusivity and getting more conversations to be had, especially with Racing Pride being such a big part of it now?
That's a really tough question, to be fair. And I think the conversation has to start with each other. I don't want to say this, you can't force an agenda. It's got to be a very inclusive space for people to feel comfortable and to talk about things. You've got to have the right supporting policies and processes in place from your HR and people like that. But it is about more education and information and how we get that across to our people so that they feel it's a safe place to work. If I go back to my employment years when I first started, did I feel comfortable about who I was in that workplace? No. I hid my sexuality for about 7 years, even though I was out of my family, because I didn't feel it was the right environment for me. Did I feel that here when I walked in, when I first started in January? Absolutely not. I felt already that this was quite a comfortable place to work. I don't know why. It's a feeling that I got. I feel quite safe here. I think people are open and accepting. You just have to keep that conversation going.
Is that something you agree with? Is that your experience of coming here? Obviously you've been with Aston Martin for a bit long. Do you feel that you're accepted in your own skin?
When I started here, no, I couldn't be me, but I couldn't be out in the rest of the world either. It wasn't just the team. But as I started my transition, I think it was around 2017, that last step was come out here at Aston Martin. And I think the key thing was, for me, was the association with Racing Pride, how the motorsport industry F1 were developing the Races 1 camp. That developed that idea of the safe space. So it's actually quite reassuring to hear that we've had somebody who's joined the team quite recently and came into an environment where it does feel that bit more of a safe space than definitely I had when I started. And as co-chair of the DE&I group with Ellie, we are, this is one of our things that we're trying to promote, the idea of a safe space.
A good time to talk about the DE&I group. What are Aston Martin doing? What are you doing alongside Ellie to really make a change and to make people feel safer and more part of the community?
Well, this Pride Month, of course, is we're taking every advantage of it to promote. Those who are walking around the factory today, you could see the screens on bridges, on everyone's desktop this month. We've got this amazing image, so you can see it over my left shoulder, of the Formula 1 car with the progress flag colours, indeed. And that's just one element of us just promoting the idea of inclusion in the team for other people to see and believe that they can be themselves here. And we're constantly looking to see what the team here can do to just enable and empower people to be working at their best, to be high performers working in this industry.
Connor, let's just speak to you for a second. Paco made some interesting comments in his video. What changes have you seen that have been made in Citi, and how proud are you of those changes that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, let me just comment on one thing first, and what Simon and Kara said there. There's a great stat, it's a UK Pride stat, 63% of people who come out at university go back into the closet at work, 63%. And I'm pretty much guaranteeing finance definitely will be higher, and I'm sure kind of motorsport probably would be higher too. I need to ask you guys, you know, what you think about whenever you're able to be your authentic self and come out. How much you're able to focus much more on work. So for me, that's super, super important. But some of the things that we've done at Citi, and I can see some of the members here in the audience, we've been much more on the front foot on the allyship campaign. I think it's that for me is probably the single most important thing you can get right. If you're a member of the LGBTQ+ community, you know what the issues are. You live and breathe them every day. But it's for all the other people who are allies to come out and help you and understand that. And for me, whenever I sat and went through something, we did a reverse mentorship program. We've had hundreds of people go through it. The most senior members of our markets, Paco has been a member of this as well, been reverse mentored. Just to sit, and it requires 4 sessions to sit down and go with someone who identifies from the community and just to have them talk you through what it's been like, what the problems were coming out, how difficult it was. You know, I have obviously a number of mates who are gay mates, and like obviously you have conversations with them, but actually I hadn't really thought about what it was like at work and how difficult it was at work. So this campaign's been really impactful and has really opened a heck of a lot of things up.
Shelley, your role, global inclusion and belonging leader, what does that mean? Could you just talk us through what that means within your company?
Sure. So I think, you know, starting off with, it's about creating environments where everyone can feel they can be themselves without having to hide an element of themselves. And so creating conditions which everyone can succeed and have development and have successful careers is really important, and to belong into an organisation that really does stead that fast. And then secondly, I think, you know, belonging is something that someone does something to you. So if someone doesn't act in a way that makes you feel like you belong, their impact ripples on you. And so I think, you know, we're talking a little bit about allyship. You know, we need our allies to not be bystanders. We need our allies to step up. We need our allies to be part of our community conversations, to understand some of the frustrations that are happening inside or outside, to help trying to change your own behaviours and your own actions, so therefore you can ripple effect with your circle of influence. And so, you know, belonging in all different aspects of diversity strands is really, really key. And we see within our affinity groups at Cognizant, those who are part of our affinity groups are staying in an organisation. The proof is in the pudding in our data. And everything that we do, we want to ask our employees what they thought about it. Do they feel that they are included in all the aspects of, you know, the employee life cycle, really? And going back to your point earlier about the business impact, we can't serve our customers unless we've got diversity in that room. And so we need to reflect our customer base, and that is in every location where we operate. And we have over 350,000 employees at Cognizant, and so we're doing really big focus on ensuring that LGBT plus inclusion isn't just here in the UK, but it is in all of our locations where we can. And we're really fortunate that our CFO, Jan, is an out gay proud man. I'm an out gay proud woman as well in the workplace, and we have a lot of leadership in all different, I talk about leaders in not the sense of hierarchy in an organisation, but leaders who are leading teams, leading client accounts, these types of things, who are speaking or on behalf of the community, and really entwining everything that we do. So, for example, we talk a little bit about policies. We've just introduced a menopause policy in India, the UK and Ireland, and soon to be global. And we brought our LGBTQ plus group into that to help us build that policy, because it doesn't just affect women, it affects trans women, non-binary folks as well. So it's really, really important that we're having the voices of the community in those fundamental things that support our people.
Mehmet, we haven't forgotten about you. Don't worry, we're coming to you next. You deal with culture and D&I at Aston Martin Lagonda. Let's have a conversation about what you guys are doing then. And we briefly touched on it at the beginning about what exactly you're doing, but now that you've spoken, we've heard from a bit more of the panel. What specifically has made you really proud of what Aston Martin Lagonda are doing?
So before I joined, actually, with Aston Martin joining with Racing Pride, we created our inclusion network, and actually our chair is here today, Marcus. So that was the start of the journey for Aston Martin, and since then, I believe we've got a great progress in terms of having our inclusion network, expanding our inclusion network, adding different sub-strands to our network, 5 of them, and I Am Pride is one of them. Actually, the other big thing we've done is working on company values. When I joined Aston Martin, first thing I did was I looked at the headcount numbers, and 60% of the employee workforce joined Aston Martin in the last 4 years then. So when you think about 60% of newcomers in any organization, from culture perspective, how actually it would be really hard to explain what it really means to be an Aston Martin employee. So it's like the first thing we did, like, okay, so how can we actually create that consistent language around Aston Martin values? And I don't want to say launch or introduce Aston values, because values can only be unearthed, because they are there already. You just need to find them and find the right words to explain them.
Why is this so important to you? There are lots of things that we could be looking into to include, extra things, go up and beyond. Why is this specific conversation so important for you, and why is it so important that we're opening up these conversations and making sure that people are feeling so included?
For me, it's cognitive diversity. So cognitive diversity is a critical element for human performance, for human creativity, for human outcome, and human being human. So it's all inclusive, and to get that cognitive diversity, you can only achieve it through diversity, inclusion. So that's for me, I think, the simplest answer.
Simon, a similar question, but do you think Aston Martin, you already touched on it when you first came here and you felt confident and happy to come out as a gay man. Do you think Aston Martin do go that bit further than most companies you've maybe worked for in the past, or do you think that it's been managed to, there's been a safer environment that's been made just from general conversations these days?
I think from my point of view, it's more to do with the fact that society has moved on since I first started working. I started my career a long time ago. I can only relate to a very personal experience in terms of how I felt when I first started my career back in 2002. I didn't want to be out at work. I was out to all my friends and family, did not feel comfortable at work because of the culture that I was in. It feels different here. I don't know why that is just yet. As I said, I'm quite new here, but it does feel different, a lot more comfortable, a lot more at ease in terms of who I am with myself. Yes, I've had time to mature into who I am, but when you're suppressing a big part of your personality, that energy that it consumes in terms of you've got to watch your mannerisms, your language, your body language, the words that you use, who you talk about, how you refer to people, it's exhausting. And when you're putting that much effort into disguising who you are, you can't perform at work. So it's really, really important that safe space is created where people can be themselves and bring their whole self to work, irrespective of who they are, what their talents are, what their sexuality is, what their beliefs are. It doesn't really matter. Being able to bring that whole person to work is quite liberating. And once I came out of work, I was like, oh, completely different person. And people are like, oh, you've really changed. I thought, well, I haven't. This is who I've always been. I'm just being the person I should be.
It goes back to your stat a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly what, the incredible stat that you brought up. For you, why is it so important to spread that message? You spoke very passionately about how important it was for you. Why is it so important for you?
Well, again, a bank, as much as most people don't really like banks, we are a commercial. I'm super proud that Citi in Stonewall's Workplace Equality Index is in the top 10 in the UK, right? It's a really thing. We really want to protect that, keep that. We want to use that to market, because I want the people who would identify in the community to think, you know, I want to work at Citi. I hear really good things about that. I know there's good people. You know, I'll go out and try and be as visible as I possibly can as a very strong ally, and I want to attract that talent. But also, again, I'm sorry I'm pointing at you, Simon, but again, with you here working here, you feel happy here. Right? The productivity increase you get, and when you think about what we do in finance, you know, it's every second of the day we need you on stuff. And, you know, people have got mortgages, they got mums, dads that are getting older, they got brothers, sisters that have, anyone normally has got a ridiculous amount on their plate. If you're then on top of that, you're having to disguise who you are. I mean, how are you actually concentrating on work in the first place?
I know Simon was saying he felt very comfortable when he came to Aston Martin, but you quite openly said at the beginning of the chat that actually it wasn't that easy for you at the time. What kind of barriers did you find yourself up against? Did you find a lot of, you know, maybe banter in the workplace that you felt uncomfortable with because you weren't being your true, authentic self? What did you...
It's quite interesting. Simon, I think, also remarked that how society has changed in the last while. It makes me think back to Northern Ireland and 3 decades ago, being trans in Northern Ireland. You know, you can appreciate that just was not something somebody would have been very positive about, let's say. And that was one of the reasons I left Northern Ireland, was that I knew that I was trans way back then. And I didn't find the whole country to be accepting, and actually seen at the time the UK to be more progressive. But then I went to university, and that's where I decided that I would be hiding it again, and I didn't progress with my transition at that time. So as I progressed through my early career, it just didn't come up. It just had to stay hidden. I wanted this idea of what some people might consider a normal life, whatever that actually is. But it's, as came to now Aston Martin, there were certainly challenges for me to be myself, and I needed things to happen here as well first. I was already transitioning outside the workplace, so I first came out to our HR team, and then it was joining the DE&I group, and as I got into it and got to know the people around me, and that being part of that actual group helped me find that small safe space within the team to allow me to start the thinking about coming out. And so we several things were happening as part of that. We had in 21 we had allyship was our focus for the year. That was the campaign. 21 was signing up with Racing Pride. That's when we run the rainbow on the halo for the first time, which I think now is just an iconic symbol for me, that to show on a Formula One car that halo, was just incredible.
And I think we can all agree, Aston Martin, especially with Sebastian Vettel driving for them over the last couple of years, really made sure that his views, the t-shirts he wore about climate change, about LGBTQ plus rights, about being in Hungary and making, you know, real waves with some of the things he said after legislation was passed there during the World Cup, I believe. Shelley, you had something you just wanted to add on a point.
My point was about safety. Everyone's mentioned safety on here, and I think creating that psychological space of safety for people so they can bring their views to the table without being, that's a silly idea, or that if a woman says something as an idea and then a man says exactly the same with the same verbatim and it gets listened to, again, that's not creating that safe space. So I think, you know, organisations have a responsibility to train their people managers to create those safe environments. Managers should have the responsibility to ensure that they are creating those safe spaces, whether it's team meetings, project teams, whatever it may be, in those environments. So we're not just bringing the trans or the gay people to the table when we want their point of view on those topics.
Simon, let's just talk a little bit about behaviours, because with yourself being openly gay now in a very male-dominated and quite a straight sort of women sort of vibe, do you feel comfortable talking about your personal life and things like that, or is it not? Is it something that it feels very safe to talk about now?
Yeah, for me, it's been safe for a long time. Certainly had no problem here working at Aston Martin Formula 1. It's not that I go out my way to purposely talk about it. I should be able to, because who I love is my business, and who I choose to be with is my choice. I think sometimes it's probably down to as you get more confident in yourself and you feel a bit safer. I think going back to your point about psychological safety, it's really, really important, because if you don't feel mentally like that you're able to have that conversation, psychologically you're not in a safe space.
Connor, let's have a little chat about banking. It's a very different industry from Formula One and motorsport, but are you starting to see any change in the industry? Are you starting to see any changes with the conversations, or is it still very much like you're trying to get blood from stone? What's that industry like for us that maybe don't work in it?
No, there's no question, but again, I think if you mentioned it, society generally has changed, right? So, banking, no question, has gone along with society. Has it kind of differentiated itself from that? I'd like to think so. I'd like to think at Citi we have done, right? I can't comment for the competition. But again, similarly to kind of motorsport, it was probably, and particularly on the part that I'm in, which is the markets part of finance, inverted commas, Wall Street, it was pretty aggressive. It still is pretty aggressive, but in a very much different way. You look back on it, I mean, you're like, it's really embarrassing, right? And it's something that certainly banking nowadays, it could not be further from that whatsoever. Citi's fantastic. Our CEO is a woman, Jane Fraser, the first CEO of Wall Street Bank. So that's a great head up for us, and she is absolutely superb. And one of the things that she talks about, which is very different to every other Wall Street exec out there, one of the first words she came on one of her first speeches was empathy, which is not a word you would particularly associate with bankers. And she was very clear that she came out, talked about that, and the way we've talked about our return from COVID policy. I mean, there's just this slight difference, ever so slight difference from our competition. I can tell you people notice it, and for us, it's a differentiator.
Mehmet, do you think the car industry is changing, or have you seen changes in the time that you've been there?
It is changing for sure, but the pace is questionable. I think, again, it's a very male-dominated manufacturing environment, and definitely Aston Martin is doing its best. I think for any culture work, it takes time, and it takes level of digestion in people's minds. So definitely it's much quicker compared to, 10 years ago when I was an HR business partner. Now, again, the pace is important. I believe, going back to the comment from Michelle, is mainly around visibility and creating that visibility and actually showing that it is possible. If you are an engineer from the community, if you are a female engineer, if you are, if you are coming a different strand, and you see people in design or engineering or manufacturing, giving that visibility actually inspire people, and that helps a lot.
Karis, did you ever think that you would feel so included in a scenario in here that other companies have really learned from maybe your story?
I could probably answer that in one word, no.
Don't, because we've got a while.
It's just simply no. I just didn't. I didn't see it coming. To be quite honest, go back 5 years or so when my very early days of, I was like, I have to do something about this. If I'm going to be on the planet at all in 10 years, I need to do something about this. And so that was the point where I have to do it. But I thought it would always be another aspect of my life. I would have to keep my work life and my social life, my home life, very separated. So it was a case that, when I started on my transition journey, I just thought that, right, well, we'll see how it goes, and at some point, I might just be out of the industry. That was where I was. I was like, I have to do this for me. I have to be myself.
Shelley, let's talk a little bit about resources, because I think Karis sort of made a point there about, not wanting to be in the industry. And I think what's really important here is we talk a little bit about mental health and the hit that it can take if you're trying to not be someone that you are at work. And even if you choose not to be openly gay at work, but you're openly gay in your home life, you're still holding a little back, like Simon said, not saying who you're going on holiday with. What is in place in terms of mental health, to make sure that people feel still comfortable?
There's quite a few things that people can do, and there's a lot of things that we're doing in our organisation. And coming out isn't a one-time thing. As everyone who's ever come out in their life knows, it's an everyday occurrence when you meet somebody new or someone joins your team. And so when we talk about mental health, it's positive and negative is which we look at. And so at Cognizant, we have trained mental health first aiders, of which I'm proudly one of them. and also mental health champions, which are in every part of our business. So someone in their team can help them navigate some conversations. We also have, employee assistance program, trained counsellors, and I think people feel different at different times. So we will have facilitated discussions with our community about how they're feeling, helping navigate those feelings, and trying to provide that source of comfort and the power of the group, really, and that peer-to-peer support is something that we really, really focus on. And Pride is very much a celebration for every single person who's come out. We celebrate really loud and proud, and there's thousands of Prides around the world and more than 25 in the UK and Ireland. And I look forward to joining Dublin this weekend with Cognizant. But we need to celebrate every single moment, because love rises above everything, in my opinion. And back to your point about being human.
Simon, for you, Aston Martin, do you think they're doing enough to support in terms of, if you were struggling with your mental health for a certain thing, in terms of how you feel? What's your, I know you've not been here for long, but your short view of Aston Martin?
I think there's lots of support here in terms of an employee assistance program. There's resources that you can access as well. I'm yet to read upon those, but I do know that there are materials available and resources that we can go to should you need further support. So yeah, at the moment we're doing enough.
I just wanted to add as well that the resources that are available for parents, which is really, really important. So supporting parents to navigate the conversations with their children or teens, and how best they can support the LGBTQ+ people in their lives. And that's something that our support goes a little bit further on, and focusing on the parental aspect.
Just on a final question for all of you, we can start with whoever wants to start. What can we do to speed up the process, to understand, to educate, to come away from a session like this just knowing that little bit more?
I can start.
Yeah.
Just to talk about it first, like openly talking about it, and then inviting people and using them as allies as well. It's the community piece. It's the whole thing around, actually this is okay to talk about it, and we are here. But this is the whole journey is managing around ands, not ors. This is not or situation, it's and situation, and it's talking about it. It's just to start.
I agree with you. I think it's having that constant drumbeat throughout the year or the years, right? So Pride is an accent of that drumbeat, and I think it's great to celebrate the key awareness days of our community, of which there are very many. So hurrah for that. But also, it's about what you're doing 365 days of the year, what thought leadership you're putting out there, what your social media is doing, what your leaders are saying, what your people are getting involved in, what communities you're supporting, charities you're supporting, your brand supporting. The list really does go on. And I think big brands have a great place to help sway minds of the many, because we have that reach, and AMF1 have that reach as well, and Formula One in general, similar to the tech industry as well. So I think creating that ripple effect, everything we do, not just at Pride, or not just when we're talking about certain awareness days, but throughout the whole things of whatever we're doing, have that consideration, whether it be from supply diversity to your people and your output to your clients.
Simon.
This is almost like, for me, people are, if you have a bad meal somewhere, a bad experience, you're far more likely to tell everybody about oh my god, awful time, don't go to this restaurant, don't go for there, really horrible atmosphere, really horrible service. If you can take one positive away from this today, share it with everybody. Just share the good news stories that have come out, what people have actually referenced today. If you just share just one good thing, share it with as many people as you can. You'll spread positivity rather than the negativity. So I think that for me is key.
I love that. Connor?
Yeah, so my slant on that would be visible support, whichever way you can do it. It can be small, tiny little things. I loved your comment around the halo on the car. For me, if anyone receives an email from me, it has the flag on there with Proud Ally. And the number of people that have taken me aside at the time, put it on, said, look, I'm really pleased you did that. Any meeting I go to, I try and weave in some way about my support. and what I do around allyship. I literally just did a call here just before I popped on here, big global call, and I talked about being here at Aston Martin, which obviously everyone thinks I'm coming here for a driving day. But I said, look, I'm here for an LGBTQ plus panel. That's exactly why I'm here. It's super important, and that was my opening comment on that call. So wherever I can weave that in, I weave it in.
And Karis.
I think in Formula One motorsport, I think the change has been relatively rapid. It feels slow in my career overall, but in the last 3-4 years, it's accelerated massively. And we know the journey never ends. We're on that journey, and we have to keep going with that. And I think one of the things I find is that as groups of people, we can be quite tribal. We conform to the group that we're in. And sometimes it needs those people to step out. So whether that be allyship, whether it be a group of people and one person wears that badge just to say, yep, here's the rainbow, I'm an ally. Not even verbally, just displays that allyship in some way or another. That can open up that group to thinking in different ways. And there may be other people in that group that are not able to be themselves, and they see this ally. I think that's very, very powerful. And so I think through conversations like this, events like this, workshops across all industries, and at least at Formula One, we've got this platform to promote what we're trying to do here at this team.
Look, I just want to thank all 5 of you for being so honest. It was so interesting to hear your insights and your thoughts and what you're doing to really help the community. So I just want to thank you all for being here first, and I'm sure we can all thank them together. So thank you both all for being here.